Imagine this. Two almost identical drinks, two similar colors, two sweet flavors, but behind them, corporate espionage, psychological warfare, and maneuvers that reshaped global culture. This isn't just the story of two sodas. It's the story of how a commercial war defined what we consume and how we think. Did you know Coca-Cola was born in 1886 in the pharmacy of a chemist from Atlanta? Pepsi came years later with a similar recipe, but a completely different ambition. Over time, the world split in two, Team Coca-Cola and Team Pepsi. What began as innocent competition became a corporate Cold War, a war for your mind, for your identity, for your memories. Let's begin with Coca-Cola, the empire of the symbol. To understand this war, we first need to understand what Coca-Cola really is, because Coca-Cola isn't just a drink, it's a symbol. At the end of the 19th century, America was growing fast. Factories, movement, immigration, noise, stress. People longed for a moment of pause, a small reward. And there, in an Atlanta pharmacy, a man named John Pemberton mixed sugar, coca leaves, and cola nut extract without realizing he was creating a myth. But the magic wasn't in the formula. The magic was in the way it was sold. Coca-Cola understood emotion before anyone else. While other drinks were sold as medicinal tonics, Coca-Cola decided to sell feeling, and it worked. World War II changes everything. When the U.S. entered the war, Coca-Cola made a brilliant move. They offered to supply Coke to every American soldier, wherever they were, for the same price as back home. It wasn't just a soda. It was a piece of home in the middle of chaos. Portable factories were built across Europe, Asia, Africa. Wherever U.S. soldiers went, Coca-Cola followed. Coca-Cola became the taste of freedom. After the war, the whole planet knew who Coca-Cola was and what it stood for. They weren't selling soda, they were selling identity. And when a brand links itself to happiness, it becomes part of your memory. If you ever drank a Coke at a family gathering, a birthday, a Christmas, a special moment, your brain already made the emotional connection. That's the secret weapon. While others sold flavor, Coca-Cola sold nostalgia. It sold belonging. And when a brand becomes part of who you are, it's almost impossible to dethrone. But the question remained, how do you compete with a symbol? Pepsi had an answer that would change marketing history forever. Now it's Pepsi's turn, the master move. By the late 1970s, Pepsi realized something few companies ever dare to admit. They weren't going to win by trying to be Coca-Cola. They couldn't imitate nostalgia. They couldn't copy history. They couldn't manufacture family memories. So they changed the question from how do we beat Coca-Cola to how do we make people doubt Coca-Cola? And that's when one of the most famous marketing experiments in history was born, the Pepsi Challenge, the taste test that exposed the truth. The idea was simple. 2 cups. One had Coca-Cola, the other Pepsi. No labels, no colors, no brands, just taste. Thousands of people around the world participated. And something surprising happened. Most people chose Pepsi. Why? Because in a 2-sip test, the human brain tends to prefer what's sweeter. Pepsi wasn't better, but it was more instantly satisfying. A quick dopamine hit, and Pepsi filmed it all, turned it into a campaign, broadcast it on TV, turned it into a global conversation. Pepsi gave the world a dangerous idea. Maybe Coca-Cola isn't as good as you thought. And when a brand built on nostalgia faces doubt, something cracks. For the first time in nearly a century, Coca-Cola felt fear. If stories like this fascinate you, and you want to see more corporate wars like it, subscribe right now and hit like. Thank you. Let's continue. Coca-Cola reacts badly. The pressure was so intense that Coca-Cola made the most controversial decision in its history. They changed their recipe. They wanted a sweeter, more modern Coca-Cola. They wanted to beat Pepsi at its own game. And that's how New Coke was born, the drink that almost destroyed Coca-Cola from within. But that story is a whole other chapter. The decision that almost ruined everything. The pressure was massive. The Pepsi Challenge results were everywhere, on TV, in malls, in daily conversations. For the first time in 100 years, Coca-Cola no longer seemed invincible. Executives met. Studies were conducted. Thousands of taste tests. Months of analysis, hours and hours of internal debate, and they reached one conclusion. The flavor had to change. Not the label, not the ad campaign, not the message, the formula. the essence, the identity. They wanted a sweeter, trendier, more competitive Coke, one that could beat Pepsi on its own turf. And so, in 1985, New Coke was launched. The company announced live on national television, Coca-Cola will change its recipe for the first time in history. The world was in shock. At first, there was curiosity and excitement, people lining up to taste it, journalists covering the event. But the excitement didn't last, because Coca-Cola failed to understand one crucial thing. People didn't just love the flavor. They loved what that flavor represented. Childhood, family moments, summers, Christmas, first dates, memories that live inside you. New Coke didn't just change the taste, it erased a memory. The backlash was explosive. Coca-Cola's phone lines were overwhelmed. Thousands of complaint letters, protests on national news, spontaneous Save the Original Coke campaigns. People hoarded old cans like gold. Some accused Coca-Cola of betraying its own country. It wasn't a drink anymore. It was a national symbol. After just 79 days, Coca-Cola gave up. The original formula returned to stores, but under a new name, Coca-Cola Classic. Applause, euphoria, tears. A nation embracing a recovered memory. Mistake or masterstroke? Over the years, a different and dangerous theory emerged. What if Coca-Cola did it on purpose? What if they knew people had forgotten how much they loved the original and needed to make it disappear, just so the world would miss it again? Nostalgia is the most powerful emotion in marketing, and after the return of the original formula, sales skyrocketed, loyalty deepened, the brand became more untouchable than ever. Was it a historic mistake or a perfect psychological operation? To this day, no one has confessed. But the war wasn't over, because Pepsi still had one last weapon, and it was about to explode in global culture, youth, and celebrity. Pepsi strikes back, the power of pop. While Coca-Cola reclaimed its throne through nostalgia, Pepsi attacked from a completely different front. Culture, music, youth, the idea of being modern. If Coca-Cola was tradition, Pepsi would be rebellion. If Coca-Cola was family, Pepsi would be attitude. And for that, they needed something stronger than history. They needed stars. Michael Jackson, the ultimate cultural hit. In the mid-'80s, Pepsi made a move that changed advertising forever. They signed Michael Jackson, the most famous artist on the planet, the most influential figure in music, the global icon of youth. It wasn't just putting him in a commercial, it was making Pepsi part of pop culture itself. When Michael danced, Pepsi was there. When Michael released an album, Pepsi was there. When millions of young people copied his style, Pepsi was there. The drink became an identity. Pepsi creates the celebrity formula, and more would follow. Britney Spears, the princess of pop. Beyoncé, power and evolution. Madonna, provocation and reinvention. David Beckham, global style icon. Pepsi didn't just hire celebrities, it created moments, concerts, world tours, trends. Pepsi became the brand of youth, of those who wanted to be different. Because the real battle isn't about soft drinks. It's about what they mean to you, about who stays with you, in your celebrations, your memories, your personal story. If this video made you see something as simple as a soda in a completely new way, subscribe now, hit like, comment Drakonomic is growing, and I'll see you in the next video.